Welcome and thank you for joining us here at St Mary's today to celebrate Black History Month. This is a special occasion every year, and it's an honour to be part of it every year as we do here in St Mary's. This year, Black History Month is dedicated to reclaiming narratives, an opportunity to highlight and recognise the often unsung stories of Black achievement. Reclaiming narratives challenges us to reconsider the story we have told as a society, and more specifically, as a fire and rescue service. It pushes us to understand what it means to equitably serve all communities, truly see the contributions to those who have been marginalised. The theme invites us to move beyond passive recognition of history to active participation in rewriting it, shaping a future that honours and values every voice. In this spirit, I reflect on the power of community, something I've seen firsthand in Southampton when, during times of unrest we've just been hearing about, our communities came together, choosing unity over division. We, as a fire service, had plans in place, but they were not needed. Testament to the strength and resilience of our communities. As a service, we are committed to more than just not being racist. We are committed to being actively anti-racist. For me, that means confronting my own biases and privileges, educating myself, and most importantly, standing alongside those who experience racism, whether overt or subtle. It's not enough to be neutral. We need to challenge the systems that uphold inequality, and that's a responsibility we all share across my team. This year also marks the release of the full report of Grenfell Tower fire, a tragedy that continues to weigh heavily on our hearts. While I cannot pretend to fully grasp the pain of those who lived through that disaster, I can offer my solidarity and my commitment to learn from the past and in fixing what could only be described as a broken system. Grenfell serves as a reminder that as a fire service, we must be unwavering in our commitment, justice and safety. Survivors and the bereaved families have shown remarkable strength, the resilience in their pursuit of answers. Our service is fully committed to addressing the findings of the and to implementing new strategies that will help protect communities in the future. We must always strive to be better. I would also like to take the chance to remember and pay tribute to a colleague who sadly lost their lives earlier this year. Wayne Brown was the first Black chief in the country, and I would like to note the bravery of his leadership in both the face of serious personal challenge and systemic adversities operating in public life. Working within the public sector is never an easy endeavour. Not only the associated pressures, but are also ultimate responsibilities to our communities to make life safer, considering your many needs. Wayne undoubtedly faced this pressure too, but he will be remembered a role model, leader, friend, hopefully an inspiration for the next generation. Reclaiming narratives is also about celebrating those who are helping to move our service forward. I would like to take a moment to recognise Fire Reach Network, my organisation, and the incredible work they've done in making Hampshire and Isle of Wight's Fire and Rescue Service a better, inclusive place. To the members of Fire Reach, and especially Ben Taylor and Aya Al-Zatani, your leadership in celebrating events like Fazaki, Lunar New Year and Mellors, and of course the launch of Black Month, have made a significant impact. Thank you for helping us learn, grow as a service. Looking ahead, I see a future Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service that's not just reactive, but proactive. A service that is committed to being an inclusive, equitable place to work. A place where our workforce reflects the community we serve. I recognise the privilege I hold, and with that comes a responsibility to create spaces for others, to amplify voices that are too often unheard, and to challenge the status quo when needed. Our doors are open to everyone. Whether in operational roles or as a part of our support staff, we are committed to supporting you no matter what your background. We welcome and actively invite everyone to join us in shaping the future community service. As I close today, I would encourage you all to reflect on the theme of this year's Black History, reclaiming narratives. Not just a theme, It's a call to action. It's about rewriting the story together, gather up, and ensuring that every voice is heard, valued. I'd also like to reflect on the station that we find ourselves in and the role it has played over the years. Historically, the first centre of the Windrush community site opposite our station. These days, we see St Mary's Station as a beacon in the community. It's our hope that we continue to engage and interact with our vibrant local community. Many of you will know Pete McClement, who spoke earlier, and his team here. We're incredibly proud of the work they do here also. Finally, it's my pleasure to say that we are in collaboration to redesign the mural outside St Mary's Fire. With thanks to the artist Carleen De Souza. Redesign is a celebration for the Windrush generation and the Afro-Caribbean community. In the theme of continuing the celebrations of Black History Month, we're hoping to unveil the redesign in October, once the final installation. Hope you have a lovely day today. I'm certainly looking forward to it. And thank you for being here.
Now then, I would like to invite Jayanti Shah. Now, Jayanti and Don's in the room. They started Black History Month in Southampton, going back 18 years. So that's, you know, a round of applause, please. So we wouldn't be here without them. We would not be here without them. Don, in his inimitable way, is standing very quietly at the back of the room. And when I first took over running Black History Month in Southampton, everybody said, "Well, where's Don?" I mean, literally, yeah. And everybody I met said, "Oh yeah, yeah, Don does that, doesn't he?" I've had to live in his shadow for years. And now he's at the back of the room. No, I'm joking. If you know me, you know that's how I roll. Yes. Anyway, I'd like to invite Jayanti Shah up to the stage to give you a few words. Round of applause.
Thank you. Before I say anything, can I just say something to Superintendent? They are not idiots. They are terrorists. They brought the country and city down to a halt on Tuesday and on Wednesday. We had 400 people at Peace Fountain. There would have been more than 400 because people like me were frightened to go out. And that, in my books, is terrorism. I don't care what anybody says. Call it what it is. So I don't agree with what idiots. I've changed the title of this week's theme from reclaiming narratives to changing. You know, it wouldn't be me. Unlike Dawn, I like talking. You know, he stands in the background, I'm in front. Can I start by asking all of you, just don't be shy, put your hands up, just asking, how many of you are from ethnic minority? Yeah, few of you. Now, I don't want to address you. I want to address the people who didn't put their hands up. Reflect on the fact, what is your ethnicity? Is it Anglo-Saxon? Is it Huguenot? What is it? Everybody has ethnicity. Anyway, I'll leave that there. Yeah, because we have this narrative of ethnic minority. I'm quite old. I went to Southampton University in 1968. Came to Southampton 68. And the first question that I was asked, again, that's a narrative, continues today. First question I asked, where are you? So I said, East Africa. I was born in Nairobi. So that question didn't upset me. It's the answer that followed that upset me. The answer that followed was, you don't look African. I don't know what Africans look like. I wonder if they'd asked that question of white South Africans. Said, I'm from Africa. In the 70s, Dawn, Lou, etc., were described, whether they were born in London or not, described as Jamaicans. rightly as West Indians. And they were underrepresented in our life, our work, etc. So we had the narrative. These people are underrepresented. We have to change that. We have to get them to be representative, be represented in walks of life. And they were called. And part of the narrative was people, black people with curly hairs, are educationally subnormal. That was the narrative. This is what we are talking about in 1970s. After that, people from mainly of South Asian origin from Africa came to Britain, and suddenly it changed from being Americans and West Indians to new Commonwealth immigrants. That's a very good phrase, that, new Commonwealth immigrants. A subtext for black. Yeah, subtext for non-white. But it's a polite way in which we in Britain do things. So we continue with that. Government then introduced initiatives to deal with underrepresentation of these new Commonwealth citizens. Yes, you guessed it, it's underrepresentation of the. They created initiatives of providing grants for what they referred politically as black organization, and they were right to refer to them as black organization. And they provided grants, and all the people, whether they are Chinese origin, South Asian origin, they all referred to themselves as blacks. It was a political term which was very, very well said. But again, it was to sort of address the issue of underrepresentation of these new Commonwealth citizens, these new black people. It continued for a while. Then they started referring to them as ethnic minorities. That's why my question, how many of you are ethnic minorities? Again, a subtext for non-white Europeans. Yep. Subtext basically for non-Anglo-Saxons. You get this in the United States. We talk about African American and Italian American and French American, but we don't talk about Anglo-Saxon Americans. That's the default position. And that, to me, is says a lot, is identifying quite a large proportions of our people, and I have called them our neighbors, as not belonging, as something different, as an outsider. Now they are referred to as people of color, people from global south. Yeah. And but the narrative is still the same. They are underrepresented. No one has got to look at the causes of this underrepresentation. And in my books, the cause of that underrepresentation is just one word: racism. Call it what you may. Racism derived from colonization of the world by Europe. It doesn't matter if somebody asks me where I'm from. I don't think that's relevant. It is the assumptions they make and they stereotype people on the appearance, on their appearance. And that, to me, is unacceptable. I think we have to change the narrative to actually openly talk about racism. Everything that we do are initiatives of treating symptoms, not the causes. The symptoms are underrepresentation. The cause is racism. Mayor mentioned something about D-Day. I've got to mention this because two people I don't like at all: Nigel Farage and Rishi Sunak. Nigel Farage, after the D-Day ceremony, said about poor Ills, our Prime Minister, because Prime Minister came away from D-Day earlier, said, maybe he doesn't understand our culture. Think about it. It is a direct distinction made by a high-profile politician that our Prime Minister does not belong to this country. And that is unacceptable. Of course, I said to Nigel Farage, of course he doesn't understand your culture. Mr. Farage, your culture is a pint in the hand, a fag in the mouth, and out to chicken vindaloo later on in the evening. Nigel Farage is a teetotaler, non-smoker, and a vegetarian. So those three things don't apply to him. And of course, he doesn't understand your culture. In any case, what the hell is our culture? I don't know. Fish and chips? Chicken vindaloo? Who knows? And I think we have to stop looking at symptoms and we got to treat people what they are. People are people. I've said in the past and I continue saying it, we are all neighbors. People are people. And what I suffered, only other day I was asked, it must be hot where you come from. I've been in Southampton for 50 years. You know, my answer to this guy from Winchester was, of course it is. It's 10 miles south of Winchester. It is a narrative which needs to be changed. We have to treat people as people. Thank you very much. Can I just say something? There was a South Asian lady. This is completely the South Asian origin lady who has been in Britain since 1969. I saw her one week. She said she was talking about refugees and asylum seekers, and she says they're here for benefits. Here for benefits. So I said, a week later, I said to her, were you born in Britain? Where did you come from? She says, I came from East Africa. You know, so, and we are South Asian origin. Why Britain? Why not India? And she says, oh, well, because there's a good education. We get free. I said, free. There's a good health. I said, free. We get council houses. Oh, yeah, subsidized. And you claim that you did not claim benefits. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay. So, now, if you were here last year, you would have seen Aflo the poet. I know. I am such a big fan. I really am. I saw Aflo probably just over a year ago, and she was doing a presentation at an event that I went to. I was blown away. Now, she came here last year, and I thought to myself, shall we do it again? Because she was just so good. And I phoned her up, and she said yes. I know. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, a warm round of applause for Aflo.
Thank you, Lou. And it's so lovely to be back here. I was blown away by the sense of community that's in this room from all different aspects of Southampton and how that comes together. Now, I'm just a bit further along the coast in Brighton. I feel like we've got a lot further to go in terms of how we're connected. So it's so wonderful to be welcomed back here and to see some familiar smiling faces. So got a couple poems to share with you now, and then I'll be back a bit later with a couple more. I thought I'd share something old and something fairly new. And the first one I want to share is called Decolonized Rhymes. I think I shared this last time. So as we look back at history, and we hold this in mind as we continue to look forwards, there are narratives missing, right? There are things that are missed out of the things that we repeat. And I wonder if we could kind of think again about where we're taking our education from. So this is Decolonized Rhymes. Here is a simple equation. Lower expectations for POC students plus an unrepresentative curriculum rooted in colonization equals attainment gaps. Less brown folks wearing graduation caps, less brown folks making waves in society, and less brown folk gaining academic notoriety. And I think it's a travesty that students can reach the third year of their degrees without confronting or being told to read the likes of Fanon, Hill Collins, Morrison, Davis, Angela Davis, and Hooks. Yet, in all these reading lists, And in all these books is dead white man after dead white man after dead white man after dead white man. And I won't go on because you know I can. This is not an unconscious bias. The word unconscious is consciously adopted to absolve responsibility. All these white names weren't put there inconspicuously. The sun never sets on the colonial empire. Philosophical underpinnings pin us down like shackles. Academic repression perpetuates oppression, perpetuating violence in the silence of Black academia. Roads must fall, and roads must be analysed in context and subject to criticism. Dismantling statues alone won't dismantle systemic racism. And I'm sure if we taught the works and the likes of Tupac Shakur, there would be an abundance and more young Black men interested in theorizing critically, a breath of fresh air from the stank of the strange fruit still hanging in the libraries. Because if the only times we hear about our kinds are intertwined in struggles and isms, then how are we supposed to rise to further education, full of promise and hopes and ambitions? How did people who look like me contribute to history? Science, maths, geography, psychology, colonialism cloaks these hidden figures and keeps young minds from growing bigger. You know, they say this glass ceiling stops white women from achieving anything white men can do. Well, at least it's glass, so they can see through. Imagine if that ceiling was made of concrete. I tell you, it tastes one half a bittersweet. A lack of role models and people lighting the way, leaving colourful minds to dwindle and decay. But we are here to take a stand, and we could bring about change if we could deconstruct and consider knowledge in different ways, like how I'm inspired by poets living in our times who should be just as revered, if not more than Shakespeare. Inspired by the likes of Stormzy, Loki, Dave, and Akala, I have been guided to wear my knowledge and talents as my armor. So if they say education is the key to liberation, and if you're keeping it colonial, you've got an obligation to explain to your students, researchers, and scholar activists why you're keeping it white and you ain't bothering to challenge it. So stay down if you're down with the white institution, because we are Black and we are brown and we are the revolution. Thank you. So there's a couple of lines in there that I notice kind of get people's back up sometimes. And when I talk about dead white men, what I'm referring to is these old ideas and narratives that get recycled and repeated whilst people that are here in the day speaking out get ignored. Where's the learning in that? Where's the progress in that? So again, that was decolonized rhymes. I've got one more to share with you for now, and it's called Connect 4. I wrote this earlier this year on the 4th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, and it changed the course of my life in so many ways. I think that singular event has led to me being here today. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. And this was kind of a reflection of I think's happened in the last 4 years, but also kind of seeing this common thread of injustice in different aspects of our society, be that climate change or the pollution in our seas, but also what's going on around the world in Palestine, in Sudan, in Congo, in Tigray, and that all these things are connected. Just as you were saying before about needing to find something that joins us all together rather than splitting us. I think there's something about having a global perspective, thinking globally and acting locally that will really push us forwards. So this is Connect 4, trigger warnings for mentions of genocide and violence. There is no forgetting 4 years ago, black squares upon phones, plenty of people and placards upon roads rising up across the globe. From Minneapolis to Palestine, shouting justice for Black lives, screaming freedom for all colonized, pleading, we just want a change, and now is the time. We can't afford to wait no more, so now could be the time, and the temperature is rising, can't keep up with the climate. Poisons rolling on the tides, and so many bellies emptied and unsatisfied and still demanding free Palestine while Sudan bleeds and Tigray cries. I'm so sick of watching genocides and children shaken and traumatized or burnt or beheaded or buried alive, whether under Israeli-made rubble or digging deep in Congolese cobalt mines, so we can see these scenes on lithium battery-powered pocket screens shattered. I can't breathe. As Malcolm X said, there are no chips on our shoulders, there are knees on our necks. The weight of history is heavy, but hold strong. And don't forget to raise your fist and raise your voice, because silence is neither an option nor a choice. Remember the murdered and the martyred, and rest in power, George Floyd. Thank you. What really struck me 4 years ago was seeing murals of George Floyd painted on walls in Palestine and in Gaza. And at a protest recently, a Black man approached me from the street whilst I was marching, saying, "Don't forget where you come from, sis. Don't forget about our fight." As if all these fights aren't connected, as if to care for someone else means that you're forgetting where you came from. I come from love. And there's a lot of love in the room, and there's enough love for all of us. So thank you.
Isn't she amazing? And just to let you know, I know she has a little book with her poems in. She only has a few copies. I have one. So yeah, and this is solely for me, but I think she says she's got a few copies. So if you're really nice to her later on, she may actually let you have one. So before I introduce our next guest, I just want to mention a colleague of mine. Now, you will notice that Olu Rowe, who is a colleague of mine, isn't with us today. And he wants me to say thank you to all of you who have supported him. Now, Olu, if you don't know, had a liver transplant back in February this year. He was very, very ill, but it saved his life. And right, head together. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. But he wants to thank all of you for supporting him. So give him a big round of applause. I knew I wasn't going to get through that. Anyway, so our next guest, I'd like to... Now, the great thing about being doing this particular job and running Black History Month is I get the opportunity to speak to people who I admire. I get to speak to people who I have held in high esteem for quite some time. And I get to speak to them directly, which is amazing. And it really is. This is a real privileged space to be. Our keynote speaker is a man called Festus Akinbisoye. Now, Festus was the very first Black Police and Crime Commissioner in the UK. Not only that, when you think about there has only ever been one Black Chief Constable in the whole of the UK, in the whole of the police service, and that was a chap called Mike Fuller. So what Festus achieved to be voted in was incredible. It really was. And I followed his career for quite some time. He was actually featured in a book by a man called Samuel Kasumu, and a book called The Outsider. And I was really impressed with that. So to say that I'm chuffed about this is incredible. So what I will say, he used to play professional basketball at one time. He's grown a massive business over the years. He's part of the Prince's Trust. I could go on and on, but I think I'd like to just introduce him right now. ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker, Festus Akabusoye.
Well, very good morning to you all, and thank you very much, Lou, for telling all those lies. You will be paid later. As I said, my name is Festus Akimbusoye, and until May this year, I was the Police and Crime Commissioner in Bedfordshire. And what I also would like to just do to start off with, just kind of tell you a little bit about myself and my background, how I got to be here. I was born in Nigeria. I came to England when I was 13 years old. My father was a politician in Nigeria, and a dictator came into power called, I think it was Babangida Abacha, and Dad had to flee Nigeria. And at that time, Dad also worked with a pharmaceutical company that was based in Switzerland. So we were a very wealthy, affluent family in Nigeria. I think we had about 15, 16 rooms in our house. We had chauffeur-driven drive. We had chauffeurs. We had housemaids. We had everything. And I often joke with my children that I never washed a dish in my life until I came to England, to which they then think, well, that's not fair, because they obviously have to do dishes, right, before they turn 13. And my mom ran an import business where she traveled around the world, to Switzerland, to Korea, to London, all over the place, and she was importing fabrics into Nigeria, which was big money back then. And we came to England, and London was home. In East London, in Newham, one of the most socially deprived boroughs in the country, and that was home. And this culture shock, this reality hit me. We had to live in a 2-bedroom flat above a textiles factory in Upton Park. That was just not for me, my twin sister, and my mom and my dad, by the way. That was with another family of 4. So 8 of us shared a 2-bedroom flat. That was a shock to me. What was also a shock to me was the fact that there was something called racism. Because in Nigeria, right, everybody is mostly black. And in fact, we went to a private school, and I had white teachers, and we thought they were angels, literally, right? Because all the pictures we saw in church was of a white Jesus. All the angels were white, and so everything that was white was excellent, until I got chased by the National Front in Beckton, shouting the N-word. That was quite an experience to me. Moving further, I had quite an entrepreneurial family, and I decided to go into business when I was 16 years old. And so I started an interior decoration company because I was working with my bishop in my church at the time when we were about 14, and he got me into construction. So I thought, during summer holidays, I'm going to go and get a job, or I'll do something. And so I started an interior decoration company. That didn't last very long because I ruined the guy's toilet. And I couldn't afford to replace it, so I gave that up. But I was not going to give up. I was not going to give up. Then I started another company when I was about 18, doing fashion promotion and sales. By the way, kids, I was in school at the same time, okay? So I did not pack in school. And in my home, education is not for negotiation. You don't mess with school, right? So I had to do school as well as do my side hustle as a 16-year-old, and then as an 18-year-old. And that business failed, the fashion promotion sales company, because I could not stand models because they were so egotistical. And the fashion industry was just full of people with all kinds of, I just couldn't get my head around this kind of flamboyant, colorful dress that didn't make sense to me, So I gave that up. And then I decided to start a business when I was about 23. And this is where it gets quite interesting. I had a friend who ran a company that was working with many cinemas all those years ago. And he said to me, well, Festus, you're a university man, but you're a very bright kid, very articulate. You seem like you've got a very bright future ahead of you. Why don't you come and work for me? So I said, yeah, fine, why not? So I went to work for him, and within a month, he went bankrupt. And I thought, you know what? During that month, because the company was based in Yorkshire. And during that month, I was able to secure a contract, just one for this guy in North London in Wood Green. And I'd employed people in, I was just 21, 22-year-old kid. I mean, I had all the confidence in the world. As you can tell, I still don't have any of that confidence anymore, as you can tell. But I had this sense of self-belief in myself that I could do whatever I wanted to do. Nothing was going to stop me. So I was able to recruit about 2 people to work on this particular site before the guy went bankrupt. And he said to me, well, Festus, we're losing money on this particular site, and the business is not making profit. We're going to have to make you redundant. And I said, look, listen, I set this site up for you guys in London. I know I can turn this around. Don't pay me any redundancy. I don't need anything. Just walk away and leave the rest of the mess to me to sort out. Are you sure, Festus? I said, yes, absolutely. So I took over that business. I had about about 3 months lead time. So I had the contract transfer letter. Everything was in place. So I went, because I thought everything was possible. There were no obstacles. There were no glass ceilings or concrete ceilings. I did not believe in any such thing. So I had my business plan ready. I went to a bank in the city of London, not far from where I lived in Canning Town at the time. I said to this lady, Madam, I've got this business ready to go. I've got the staff there. All I just need is about £2,000 as a cash flow to tie me over until my clients start paying me. She said, okay, fine. Let me look at your business plan. She looked at the business plan. All right, that's interesting. She then said, give me a minute, Festus. I'm going to just go away and I'll come back and I'll give you a decision. This lady went into this room. She came back in what seemed like forever to me. And she said, I'm sorry, Festus. We don't do business with people from your postcode. Now, as a aspiring Richard Branson and Aliko Dangote, if you know who that person is, the richest black man in the world, who's Nigerian, by the way, I thought to myself, that is unacceptable. I have worked so hard. I've worked so hard. I've got everything here. The business is there. It's ready to go. But my postcode? What do you mean by my postcode? That was it for me. I got home to my dad, who's now passed away, and I said, Dad, I've had enough. I cannot do this anymore. I'm going to go and try and get a job. Even though the reason why I wanted to go into business was because I finished my degree, got an excellent grade, and nobody would employ me. So in the meantime, I was working as a waiter, working as a cleaner, whatever I could do to make ends meet, because for my dad, you can't just stay at home and not work or study. I finished uni at the time. So Dad said to me, Festus, you are not going to quit. Not in my house. I will go and borrow some money from my credit card. I had really no idea what a credit card was at the time. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because knowing what I know now, I understood the kind of sacrifice that my father was going to make for me and the gamble he was willing to take on me, because Dad was working as a cleaner. He had cleaning jobs. From where we were in Nigeria to where we had to be here. And what many people don't tell you about the story of migrants to the UK or anywhere in the world is that many of them had pretty interesting lives before they came here. They were not nobodies, but there are circumstances that mean they had to leave. All right? So Dad worked as a cleaner for Burton's Menswear. Anyone remember Burton's? You're old enough. Burton's Menswear, that was his morning job. Then he would go and work at Tower Hamlets Council as a porter. And then I remember one day when I was about 17 years old, he came home and said, Festus, I've got another job. Oh, Dad. He said, do you know that new McDonald's in Canning Town? And I thought, yeah, that means you're going to be a manager there and I can come and get a Big Mac meal. Okay, I did say that, without paying much. And he said, I'm going to be the cleaner there. How do you go to school to tell your friends that your dad is the new cleaner at the new McDonald's? But Dad did whatever he had to do to make ends meet for his children, right? So that keeps into context. Dad could not afford the £2,000 that I needed to get this business off the ground. I had 1 week left. And he said, I'll borrow some money on my credit card and you can have that money. And I said, Dad, don't worry about it. Let me try one other avenue. I don't know what, but I'll see what I can do. I opened up the Yellow Pages. Anybody remember Yellow Pages? I opened up Yellow Pages. Something came up there called the Prince's Trust, trying to give money. So I called them up. I was told to come in with my business plan. To cut a long story short, I sat in front of this panel of like 6 or 7 people from the City of London. They looked at my business plan. They were like, Festus, this is one of the most comprehensive business plans we've seen. We'll get back to you. Before I could get to the bus stop, the business manager rang me and said, Festus, just so you know, you are the first client that I've had a unanimous decision to support by the Prince's Trust. I got that money. That business grew from 3 employees to 60 in about 10 years. And I became the single largest provider of that service to the cinema industry in the UK. And in fact, I've got staff working in this town in West Key. That was about 20 years ago, and they're still here. And the reason why I shared that story with you, amongst many more that I could share with you, is in line with the topic of today, which is changing the narrative. Is that what you changed it to? There you go. He's the boss, so he can do whatever he likes. It's changing the narrative. So if I say to you, Black history, what comes to mind? For many people, slavery, colonialism, empire. But I want to say to you, please, the past is meant to be a reference point, not a permanent place of residence. The past is meant to be a reference point. We must not forget. We must not live there. Otherwise, it is very difficult for our young people to see themselves beyond the story of slavery, beyond the story of colonialism and oppression. Yes, I know that happens. Yes, I know it is real. Yes, I know it is the reality of many people in the country today. But the story must not end there. Otherwise, we are failing the future generation if the story we want them to live with every day is one of shackles, one of oppression, one of slavery. Whether you like it or not, this country had an Asian prime minister. I know that my good friend did not quite like him. I know Rishi is a pretty decent guy in my opinion, but that's by the by. Where else in Europe could that have happened? Albeit for a very short period of time, this country had a Black Chancellor of the Exchequer. Didn't last as long as letters, but anyway. Where else in Europe would that have happened? This country now has a Black Foreign Secretary. Where else would that be happening? On the first one, by the way, because we had James Cleverly, Secretary as well, right? There are some really good things that's happening in this country, and there are Black and brown people up and down the length and breadth of Britain today who are doing extraordinary things. They might not be in the newspapers. They might not be a Festus. They might not be Stormzy. They might not be anyone you know by the media, but they are there. If I told you that I have a friend in the City of London, his company looks after about £2 billion worth of assets. He's an immigrant, he's Black. And I can name many others in technology, in the arts, in sports, of course, not on the football field, but in management, behind closed doors, who are deal makers. So to finish off, I want to just say this. Yes, there are problems. And I think you made a fantastic point in your poetry, and I really was moved by it. Because injustice in one place is everywhere. It's not just isolated. And I recognize that. But please, the story must not end in the story of oppression. Because there's so much more that Black people, brown people are doing in this country every single day. Can we just talk about that a little bit more? One of my things I'll just say lastly before we do the Q&A is, I will often ask people saying to me, well, Festus, so you're black. Yeah, really. Yeah, I know. What are your thoughts about this black on black crime? All these black kids stabbing other black kids. And I said, whenever we look at pedophiles, for example, you ever say white on white? Because the data shows that the majority of those who have indecent images of children are white. Why do we have to racialize bad things? Why do we have to do that? It's not necessary. Let's deal with the issues, deal with the causes of those issues, and then we can make progress. So last thing I will say to you is, thank you very much. My story is not that unique. There's nothing particularly special about me. In this room, every one of us are doing great things and continue to do more great things. And for the young people in here, I'm looking at you guys. You've got a bright future ahead of you. Please don't waste it. Thank you very much.
Something. Okay, it kind of looks like we're going to be a rap duo, but that's not going to happen. Ain't going to happen. I'd like to do a quick Q&A with, as we've got Festus to ourselves. First and foremost, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. What do you think? Brilliant. On point. Thank you. So do we have any questions from the floor? Yeah, Aflo.
Thank you for sharing. Really appreciate you sharing your narrative. What interested me was when you spoke about being denied an opportunity because of your postcode, Newham, deprived, very black, and so extra deprived of resources. And yet you found a way through the Prince's Trust in order to get that investment. And I'm curious now, with the position that you have now, if you see that it's like a part of your role, or how you kind of change that narrative around places like Newham that are deliberately deprived, and this idea that like we're forced into difference, I guess, and how that then continues to deny people opportunities, because it's so important to talk about how we can succeed, but there are people that are deliberately denied still.
That's a really great question, Flo. One of them that I think is very important to bear in mind is that just by your presence and you just being visible, you make a statement. I think Nelson Mandela, in one of his famous quotes, talked about how, those of us who have got a light, you make nothing better by hiding that light. And I choose, to some personal cost, because, I've had death threats, and I've had someone threatened to pull my daughter's hair out of her head, and I had all that kind of stuff. And as a single father who's raised 3 children, by himself for the best part of 10 years, when you start getting those kind of attacks on you and then your children, you kind of ask yourself, why am I even bothering? Why? I did not sign up for this. Well, my kids didn't anyway. But I choose to be visible and to be public. Sometimes people don't like that, and some people don't always agree with me, and that's fine. But by being visible and being public and making sure your story is heard, you give other people the slight permission to dare to try. And I think that is so important. And I could talk to you about failure. I mean, I've failed at many things in my life, but that doesn't define me. So that's what I would say. It's about being visible and using your voice like you very well do as well.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor for Festus? Okay, well, I have. Oh, yes, Jay.
I'm going to ask a question, Festus, but it's important about what you say about visibility and connected to it, National Front, connected to it, death of Stephen, etc. That visibility, what is actually resulted in people who are dark tend to suffer in silence.
Yes.
They put up with a lot of nonsense.
Yes.
They suffer in silence mainly because they do not want to, what they perceive as spoil their chances of promotion, spoil their chances of achievement, etc. How would you address people who are either shy or suffering in silence? How would you suggest that they actually?
That's a what I will say about that is this. I am in a very privileged position because there are very little consequence for me for speaking up because I've got a platform. So the cost for me speaking up is a lot less because, you're not going to mess with me, right? Because, we can go toe to toe and, we'll see what happens, right? But when I was police and crime commissioner, for example, I had, Black and Asian officers who came to me to discuss issues around the disciplinary committee or professional standards. And they saw, for example, that a Black and Asian officer was about 5 times more likely to be disciplined for the same kind of incident, and they actually had a much more greater likelihood of being sacked than their white colleagues, right? Now, they came to me within 2 weeks of me being elected as police and crime commissioner. Why didn't I do that beforehand? Because they were afraid that if they dared go to speak to somebody else, they were going to lose their jobs. So they wanted to meet me in the street of confidence. Now, I dealt with that to the point by the time I left policing, there was a 0 disparity between Black and Asian officers and their white colleagues being dismissed by the police or being disciplined because I had to focus on that. So it would be wrong of me to say that, oh, just be brave, just have courage, because I can do that because the cost to me is very minimal. But if your career depends on this, it's a lot more challenging. So what I will say is, yes, of course, you've got to have some courage. But at some point, you've got to say to yourself, what do I stand for? And is this about me? Because if you don't do something about it, chances are those coming after you will have to deal with that same thing again. So it's not easy, but it has to be done. Otherwise, nothing changes.
Thank you, Festus. We got, our hands are going crazy now. So I'm going to fly to the back to Abdullah. And then after that, we take one more question, and it was this young man here. So, Abdullah.
Okay, I've got 2 questions. Now that I've got the mic, yeah. So the first question is, what will you consider as your biggest challenge as the police crime commissioner, as a Black police crime commissioner? So the second question is, when you came from Nigeria, when you were young, and you felt like it was a shock for you, what will you have done differently if it is now? Because you've learned your lesson. So those are the 2 questions.
Okay, so I'm not the police and crime commissioner anymore, but even though it feels like that sometimes, based on the kind of messages that I still get, I would say one of the biggest challenges that I had was recognizing very, very quickly that I was held to a different standard. There were questions being asked of me that my predecessors never had to deal with. Some of them were well-intended, I think. But after a while, it's kind of like, well, why do you keep asking me about stop and search? There is more to me that I can talk to you about than just stop and search. I can talk about the police budget. I can talk about, the operational side of police because I used to be a special constable in police uniform. I can talk about so many other things, but you just get pigeonholed because of the color of your skin. So this is who you are. This is how we define you, and this is the limits that we're going to create for you. So I had to be quite bold, when I was dealing with the BBC or Sky News or whatever like that. So look, you know what? Let's talk about something else. Because I set the terms. There's a lot more that I bring to the table than just talking about the issues that affect the Black community only, right? Because some of the issues that affect women also affect Black women, right? In a more disproportionate way when you're looking at the investigation of rapes and sexual abuse and things like that. So making sure that I was not pigeonholed into one thing just because of the color of my skin was a real challenge. So that's one thing. And the level that I think I was held to by some people. If I was 13-year-old coming to England now, I think it would be a lot easier because I know there might be a disagreement about this. Britain now, in my opinion, is a lot better than it was in 1992 or whatever it was, right? Yes, we had those riots a few weeks ago. Those were disgraceful. There were racist, xenophobes in that circle. I think it would be weak for anyone in leadership position not to acknowledge that. I'm not one of those people. I acknowledge that's what some of those people were. Not all of them, but there were certainly very strong elements of that in that group. But now you've got social media. You know, I can WhatsApp my friends in Nigeria. You know, back then you couldn't do that. And so the world is a lot smaller now than it was in the early 90s and late 80s, where you can actually keep in even though you're aware, you don't feel like you're aware because you can still see all the vibes and everything going on in Lagos and all that kind of stuff. You know, you can see that now. So it will be a bit different now. Some will probably argue that the racism has just moved from the streets into a more closed, innocuous environment. So, yeah, I would say it will be different now.
Thank you. And one more question from this young man right here.
I have a question that may mix into two questions, but
What's your name, buddy?
my name's Alex.
Hi, Alex.
I have a question that may mix into two. Was there any sort of difficulty when being chosen for crime commissioner, or any sort of things that went in your way? And keeping on theme for reclaiming narratives, how can you change and be a positive influence and further the world going forward?
Great question, Alex. Thank you very much. I think it deserves a round of applause for that question. Well, those questions. Really, really good questions, Alex. By the way, you look very smart. I like that. What I would say to you is this. Most of the young people, of course, to the older ones as well, there are difficulties anywhere you go in life. Wherever you go, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're bald or you've got hair, whether you wear a suit or you wear trainers, whatever it is you are in life, there will always be someone somewhere who's got some kind of axe to grind against you just because of who you are. I'm sorry to say, my friend, that is human nature. That does not mean the whole world is a bad place. It just means human beings do bad things sometimes, and they think bad things. So yes, there were challenges. So I had someone before I got elected who said to me, well, Festus, with a name like yours, no one's going to vote for you. This was quite a respectable person, and the person suggested to me that I should shorten my name, Akin Busoye, just to make it easier for people to be able to pronounce. I'm like, my father will come out of his grave and he will slap me in the head. Because in my culture, name has very powerful meaning. Your name has a very rich history. It's not just a name that's just thrown out in the air. So my name locates where my ancestors came from. So for me to now change my name just because of an election, well, that's stupid, but there are wider ramifications for that. So of course I told them no, and I worked hard, and I won the highest ever share of votes of any candidate in that constituency, and I got the highest total votes ever as well. So that goes to show that yes, there will be challenges everywhere you go. How you respond to it is one thing. And the second question is what I would say, you cannot change the past. Just can't. But you can, by the way that you live today, determine the future. And what I say to everyone is this: I recognize the difficulties around us. Every single day, you have the opportunity to write the next chapter of your life. And you have to always remember that the pen, your hand, not somebody else's. So your future is in your hands. Okay? So don't ever forget that. And you can really become whatever you put your mind to. And I mean that with all of my heart. Yes, you're going to fail. Yes, you're going to have haters along the way. You might even get death threats. But here I am, despite all of those things. And you can do a heck of a lot more than I have done so far. All right?
Amazing.
Thank you.
So thank you, Festus. Thank you so much. And thank you for your questions. So every year we have our Black History Month South Award, and I'm going to invite Don up to give that award today.
Thanks, Lou. Anybody hear me out there? Great. My name is Don John, and I've been here once or twice before, and I recognise a few faces out there. Now, the theme is reclaiming the narrative, and I want to say that when reclaiming the narrative, let's not forget the history. Sometimes it's easy to forget that, and I want to give a big up to the Windrush generation, because we talk about reclaiming the narrative. There's a lot of history still to be told. And even though we're recapturing some of that history, it's so easy to forget. And you guys might think racism is a really bad thing in the here and now. But it was a lot worse in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. And some of the people here, they're the people who faced the worst of all of that. So let's give a big round of applause to the Windrush generation. Thank you. Now, in a sense, this next award really connects with all of that. And it gives me great pleasure to recognize this man's contribution to the community. And I think he's been around even longer than I have. He's an elder of one of the seminal Caribbean families in Southampton, who came as part of the Windrush generation. He's also an oral historian, a social commentator, a family researcher. He's been a major contributor to the preservation of the Black history of Southampton. He's a community representative for the Black Archives in the South. He's also the foremost authority on the history of that little island called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. For many years, he's been a DJ, an MC, well known in the region as Night Rider. Big clue. His influence in the Caribbean community is substantial, and the parts that he has played are worthy of recognition. I give you Forever Young, Kerwin Rogers.
Thank you very much, Don and Lou. Well, I am very honored to receive this award. You've put quite a lot of people my way over the decades. One of the first one I always remember is your very own daughter, Dana. And also the BBC too. I think that was about 3 years ago when they found out I had a relative that died in World War I in Marseille in France. So they did a story about me and gave me a full DVD of it all. And about a year ago, you introduced a young man, I think he's from Luton, but lives in London now, Alexis Kerr. And I helped him with an oral history. And he's got a book out now called Windward Family. He's honored me and Don in it because Don put him towards me. And he's made a chapter in that book about me. The character is my family surname, Rogers. So he used my name as the main character in there. And Bertie, the guy that was stolen from St. Vincent by the Haywood family in Leeds in Yorkshire, they've now set up with me and along with other people a museum in their mansion up in Leeds. So next year as well, I'm going to go up there to be presented with an award. But I thank you, Black History Month. I thank you, Don. Oh, Thank you very much, and thank you, Lou.
A well-deserved award. Thank you, Kerwin. But before I leave you, I want to say a few words. Some of you may remember that I curated an exhibition a couple of years ago called Black, a graphic novel telling the tale of a guy in Southampton, black man. This is the graphic novel. Some of you may remember that. His experiences in the criminal justice system and the foster homes, Southampton area. This young man was a guy called Tobias Tate. Many of you may have known him in Southampton as Chris Lacey. He's a good friend of mine for many years. We learnt recently that he passed away on Monday, September the 16th. In his novel, which featured many Southampton landmarks, is a testament to a young man's struggle and a celebration of his strength and grit in words and pictures. This novel is still available in October Books and the John Hansard Gallery. So for those who knew Chris Lacey, you know the struggles that he had. And he was still a young man, and sadly, he's no longer with us. So we could think of him and also pass on that information to others who may have known him. And if you have an opportunity, try and check out the graphic novel, which references many of the foster homes in Southampton and also his encounters with the criminal justice system. So in the memory of Tobias Tate, Chris Lacey, I dedicate this Black History Month launch to him. Thank you very much. Also, it's never going to go away now, am I? Also, some of you may be aware that we've got an exhibition in Southampton called A Study in Colorism. Examines issues around the politics of complexion, something that some of us don't talk about a great deal, but within black and brown communities, people are very often valued on the basis of the complexion of their skin. You may probably think, well, we've got enough problems in terms of racism. What are we worrying about colorism? Nonetheless, it's still an issue we need to grapple with, an issue that we kind of need to talk about in order to understand it a little more greatly. So the exhibition is taking place in a variety of different locations, Southampton General Hospital, Central Library, Shirley Library, Woolston Library, Mars Mayflower, Solent University, October Books, and it features a lot of very significant Southampton characters you may have seen on the screen, beginning people like Abdullah.
See it, you can't, you know what I'm saying? So that's, my mind's already there. I'd like to invite Aflo back to the stage. She's going to do one more poem, and then I've got something special for you. So come on up.
Thanks, Lou. So, bit of change of plans. So I decided to change my poem. It's one from this book. Lou made it sound like I give these away. This is actually my job. Doing some. I gave one to Lou because love Lou, and I'd love to donate one to this school because I love that you're here again. Wow. But from here, if you want to buy one, £10, and yeah, over here. Anyway, here's a poem from the book. This is Sound Systematic. Who likes sound system culture? I'm sorry, that absolutely wasn't loud enough. Like, I don't believe you, but I see you, Kerwin. Okay. We generate sound and generate conversation, the intergenerational makings of joy through desperation, traversing the globe through windrush migration and creating movements much more than gyrations. Guided jack leads, following cultural navigation, a bass-heavy society and bottom-up orchestration. We lack colonial hierarchy and create our own organizations, a community-structured ethos of collaboration. Raising volumes and speakers to higher elevations, we stack high and wide as a kind of conservation. Salvage scraps, rescued parts, and handmade creations, not lickle but talawa, a sound and space reclamation. Tapping beats, tapping feet, embodied stimulation. We're shaking off the trauma and beating out frustration. We take up space in these streets, not contained in plantations. We flip and turn tables. A powerful reimagination. Out of many, one people, embracing genre variation, divide and multiply within ourselves, avoiding assimilation. From urban to jungle, landscapes thick with vegetation, we indulge in dub plates and share without a sense of deprivation. We drill and rock steady with little moderation, vibes so catchy and prone to imitation. Welcoming nature can at times invite appropriation, but we are always original, so always an inspiration. Just like sound, we travel through forced and chosen exploration, somehow staying upbeat despite the devastation. We speak and break beats, break through invasion and isolation. We relocate long-lost relatives and relate through vibrations. No silly games are being played. These are serious operations. Systems so instrumental to our collective continuation, amplifying our voices to the fullest saturation, ensuring our sounds and stories stay in circulation. These dance halls are shelter for many through trials and tribulations. At times we clash, but no, that doesn't need to lead to complications. We are connected community. We are the congregation, and these are the churches constructed for our own divination. More than culture, more than music, and more than recreation, healing intergenerational wounds through audible medication. Through cultivating culture, we map our own constellations, sound systematically coloring and seasoning this nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Afro. And, and apologies. Yes, you can get one for £10 from Afro, but I've got mine for free. So apologies there. I didn't realize they were for sale. Yeah. Anyway, so first and foremost, before I introduce our next guests, which I'm really pleased to have with us, I'd like to say a big thank you. And thank you to, first of all, thank you to all of you for coming out once again and joining us on our Black History Month. For the launch here, it's going on through October. I'd like to, heartfelt thanks for your attendance. Big thank you to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue for giving us this wonderful venue yet again, and for all the support they've given us. Thank you so much. Thank you to Festus for coming by, to Neil, the Chief Fire Officer, Neil Odin. I'm all over the place today for some reason. To all our guests, to Jay, to Mr. Shields, our mayor, and to Fiona for coming down from the Hampshire Constabulary, and to Aflo. Thank you to my wife, who's put up with all the aggravation that comes with running Black History Month South, and for helping me put it all together. And to Creative Kitchens, who are over there right now, and you are going to be impressed. So finally, last year, they stole the show. I have to say this, they really did. So the students of St. George's College are with us today, and they're going to finish up with a little piece. Where are you all? Because the whole point of Black history is young people. That is the purpose. Absolutely. And what Festus said, pay attention. What he said to you about you can do anything, you can be anything you want to be, dare to try. That's the whole point. Dare to try. Because if you don't try, you don't do it, it ain't going to happen. It's all about working hard, having that focus. And I honestly believe there's no such thing as failure. All you have is different outcomes to what you wanted. You manage those outcomes and you move on. You learn from what happened and you move on. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, a big round of applause for the students of St. George's College. That's it from me. When they're finished, enjoy the food. and I'll see you at some of the events of Black History Month. Make sure you get to BAM Festival at the end of the week.
Not grief, proud on our let our death inspire all those. We had fallen in the battlefield, shed our blood on the arid ground, so that a seed of peace may grow. Nurture it and let it bear good fruit. We died for you who seek peace, for our enemies without fear. We believed what we came to fight for love for our country and our race. We offered our lives. So, wives, parents, brothers, and sisters, remember us when you enjoy normally. Enjoy the life that you have with your brethren, so that the legacy that we died for shall stay. Thank you that today we have gotten the justice that we deserve. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amatayo Kayemi, and the name of my poem is Reclaim Narrative. We live to inspire, we stand for the future. We are stronger together, we fight for our rights. We leave a legacy for the future generation. Our heritage lives forever. We stand for our rights. We recognize the effort put making the world as peaceful as it is today. And we honor our ancestors' change. We live as one and we preserve our legacy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melby Kamani. This is my. The historic domain where tales are very courageous, with guts and strength. They violently rebel against the tides of the past, fighting for justice and liberty. An illuminated landmark, Harriet Tubman, guiding spirit throughout the darkest hours. Martin Luther King Jr. had such a clear dream, fear was banished, and a march for justice was organized. The lyrics of Maya Angelou, a powerful song, prose and poetry will remain potent. Rosa Parks fearlessly communicated her views, sat for justice everywhere in the country. Their legacy is a blazing beacon. Actual historical occurrences, they are closely intertwined. Black history is a compelling story of courage, success, golden hearts, wide and diverse world of skin tones. Let's commemorate history.
Hello. My name is Finney Collins, and this is my poem. In a land of fog and rolling hills, where stories bloom but voices still, Fanny Ton, bold and bright, brought to Britain a new light. With sun-kissed skin by distant sun, she stood where few have ever done. A woman carved from history's past, she helped reshape Britain's cast. A muse who wore no crown of fame came to Britain, it was never the same. And through her presence, art would soar, opening hearts, unlocking doors. She showed the beauty in every shade, a bridge between the old ways laid. In every portrait, in every glance, she challenged silence with every stance. Put Britain bound in narrow view, she brought horizons broad and new. Her face, her strength, her quiet grace helped Britain see a wider space. A humble soul, but fierce in form, she weathered change, defied the norm. In art, in life, her truth was sown, and through her, Britain's heart had grown.
Hello, my name is Mary Hannah Bow, and this is my poem. In 2004, a footballer was seen with the ability and power to eventually gleam. With skilled determination at a touch so keen, he etched his name, a legend leaned. A leader, a figurehead, a guide for all, a key member from the team who knows how to ball. He was a role model to all and a guide for the youth. His leadership, his passion, a guide for truth. In many minds does his name enthrall, an influencer who inspires all, inspires others to be like him, so they can become motivated and hope to win. He led his Chelsea's team to glory's height, Didier Drogba, a name which will always be remembered in time.